That is the theme of the day. Hey, it's good to be back. Uh, Obviously, big applause for Chris Haig, who, what do you call that? He co-hosted. No, he didn't co-host because
No,
I wasn't there.
I
He was you.
substituted.
You
Fill
substitute. You
in.
were
I
this.
was fill
You
in
were this.
host.
Actually, and if you go out to social media, you'll see that Chris is out there proclaiming that the DPB show has been taken over by Chris Haig. He now has the naming rights, the ownership rights. I think there was a hostile takeover or
Yeah,
something like that in my absence. But
it all
hey,
went to my head in one show.
well, we're going to get to Chris here in a minute because he did a great job, and obviously, I had an opportunity driving back from spending the day with my granddaughter to listen to the show, and Chris knocked it out of the park. In fact, I talked to Ryan McKenzie, who used to be on the DPB show, and he actually went out and listened to it, and he thought, applause, applause, because it's not easy to do a show, for your first time. Hey, it's good to see you. Obviously, election day. Election day. Election day. Go out and vote. If you haven't voted, get to your precinct. It's the place you always vote. There is an election going on right now it's a partisan election. Obviously, you have to declare in Illinois. This is how it works. That's where most of you are listening at. You have to declare what party you want to poll a ballot for, and this is who will be your nominee for the general election, midterm election, I should say, in November. And of course, early voting in Illinois. So you have 40 days prior to November 3rd. But it is an election day. Go vote. I don't have to tell you who I'm voting for. I voted for, there you go. I'm wearing the hat. So it is a big day, Joanne. Very good. Shane, it's good to see you here. Thanks, Team Bovet. There it is. And Donovan, hey, my sister has not voted. She better get out and vote, Donovan. Get her out there. Take her.
That's still 7.
Yep. You got till 7:00. That's Central Time. 7 is when the polls close. Get out there. Get out there. If you have a vote by mail ballot and you're filling that out at home, you need to get to the post office and get it postmarked today. You can't wait till tomorrow to turn your vote by mail ballot in. It has to be postmarked today. So, hey, it's good to see you there. Everyone joining us in. It is election day here in Illinois. The primary, we're going to talk a little bit about that, mostly about that, but definitely, if you haven't voted, get out there and do it. As my friends say, make a plan now and get out there and vote. For those of you that are wondering who I am supporting, pretty straightforward. U.S. Senate, Jeannie Evans. In fact, Jeannie Ives had to come out and report that Jeannie Evans is not Jeannie Ives, that she is supporting Don. Oh, gosh, I just drew a blank on Don's name. Sorry, Don. I'll get there. Hold on. The brain's ticking. Don Tracy, thank you. A little slow on the uptake, but I got there. John Tracy is one of the candidates, but I'm supporting Jeannie Evans, not Jeannie Ives. Jeannie Ives, as she's told us, isn't on the ballot. So she doesn't want any confusion out there that you think that you're voting for Jeannie Ives when it's actually Jeannie Evans. Does that not just make you crazy? Thank you, Joanne. Yes, Don Tracy. Thank you, Brother Mark. It's good to see you. Voted, get out the vote. Yep, get out the vote. If there's still time, 3 hours until the polls close. Then for governor, I am supporting Darren Bailey. And obviously, we're going to talk more about that on Thursday's show after the primary. But today, we're going to talk about unelectable.
Hey, you might want to mention the Secretary of State. I forget.
Yeah, thank you, Chris.
There's a second person there, and that person is doing it kind of as a joke. So
yeah, Diane Harris ran for state senate in 22. Diane really worked hard to try to achieve a Senate seat as a Republican. This time around, she is running as Secretary of State. She went out. She garnered the signatures needed. She is a serious candidate, but Diane Harris, yes. And finally, Chris, thank you, because the reminder, and we're going to get to Chris Haig here in a second, uh, a reminder that if you are looking at a treasurer, or the office of treasurer under the Republican ballot, it says no candidate, and then it says write-in. If there wasn't a possibility to write in because you have to go through certain steps to make it so they'll have a blank there, you have to actually click on it if it's if you click on it if you're doing electronically. If you're doing a paper ballot, you have to physically write in, and the name that we're writing in that I'm recommending, because it's the only person who has put forth his name to be a write-in candidate for the state treasurer's seat, is Max Solomon. I should put that here. Hold on. I'll put it in the comment section. You spell his name Max, and it's Solomon. It's all O's. Let's see here if that shows up. Yes, it should. Let me see. There it is. Max Solomon for state treasurer. Uh, Everybody else was running unopposed. Of course, there's a congressional race in my congressional district that I'm voting for. I voted for Dylan Vansel. He is in the 17th congressional district. A lot of you might be voting in and around where I live. You might be voting in the 16th congressional district, which is Darren LaHood. And I'm pretty certain Darren is running unopposed.
Yep.
His primary seat, because you would have voted for him, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
I think I've got it all covered. But I want to get to the topic at hand. Unelectable. This is something that my wife and I, Mrs. Producer, who's not with me today. I don't know, why am I so off screen? Gotta get back. There we go. Now I'm in the middle of the screen. This is something that's really frustrating, Chris, and I want to get your opinion on this. Why would anyone, you don't see the Democrats doing this, but why would the Republicans be out there creating chaos and creating a stirring that any one of the four candidates is unelectable? Rick Heigner, Jim Mendrick, Sheriff Mendrick, Ted Dombrowski, formerly of Wirepoints, and Darren Bailey. All four of those men, I went to Washington, Illinois, and saw all four of those men on stage. There is nothing unelectable about any one of them. They're all electable. Why people are putting that out? What do you think our opponents this fall think when the Republicans are making statements about their candidates? Talk about your policy. Talk about why it is you're a better candidate. Talk about what you're going to do when you are the governor of Illinois. But if your campaign is strictly based on, and I'm not saying this is necessarily coming from the candidates, I do understand that campaign teams tend to do things like this when they feel like they're losing ground, which I know at least two of the campaigns that have spent a little time, and I don't necessarily know if this is marching orders from their campaign manager, their chief of staff, their staff members. But boy, there's a lot of silliness, a lot of saber rattling about this term unelectable. All these candidates are electable. The only way that they get elected this fall is if we turn out unreliable voters in Illinois. We've talked about this over and over and over and over again. In 2018, J.B. Pritzker garnered 2.5 million votes against Bruce Rauner. In 2022, he garnered 2.2 million votes against Darren Bailey. He lost 300,000 votes. Darren Bailey and Bruce Rauner, 2018 and 2022 had about the same amount of votes, about 1.8 million. So they both lost by about 400,000 votes. Now, to contrast that with President Trump, in 2024's election here in Illinois, he was able to get 2.4 million votes cast for him. If we were to duplicate that, our candidate, whomever that's going to be, and I do believe it's going to be Darren Bailey, would walk away and win. My wife wanted to make sure I pointed this out, Chris. Chris, do you know how many FOID card holders there are in the state of Illinois?
No, not a topic that I investigated.
So for the Second Amendment people, 2A people, there are 2.5 million FOID card holders in Illinois. If every FOID card holder in Illinois, who obviously pro Second Amendment, were to go out and vote for the Second Amendment candidate, which is usually a Republican over a Democrat. In fact, I'm pretty certain it's a Republican over a Democrat based on J.B. Pritzker's legislation to count your bullets. He wants now to take inventory of every bullet you have. If every 2A member were to vote, being a FOID card holder, we'd have 2.5 million people. We'd win every election. You're right. Ryan McKenzie's in the house. Good to see you. We were talking about you earlier, Ryan. Churches and 2A members don't vote every election. Exactly. And that's the problem. But that's where we have to get to. It's not unelectable. No. Do you think the Democrat candidates that they put up are electable? Well, yeah, they elect one every time around. Do you ever hear the Democrats make that statement about whether it's Raja or Juliana Stratton as their Senate candidates? They don't talk about being electable, unelectable. They talk about squabbling amongst the politics of their party, which is what we should be doing. Instead, we've got people out there that think it's cute, I think, and it sure is counterproductive to the party overall by stating that people are unelectable. Everyone's electable if they get enough votes. The key is getting enough votes. Thank you, Ryan. But anyhow, we are going to cover a little bit more on unelectability. Hopefully, if you're tuning in right now to the DPB show, that you have voted. If you haven't voted, it is 4:13. You have over 2 hours and 45 minutes to get to your polling place and to vote. I'm probably, preaching to the choir here because all of you, I saw a couple of you had already voted. You guys, you're listening to the DPB show, so you're voting. But the thing that I really want to talk about at a further length is Chris. Chris Haig took upon the responsibility of doing the DPB show on Thursday. And I don't know if you were able to tune in for it. I didn't necessarily get to see the comment section because I was driving, and I don't encourage you to be driving and reading the comment sections on social media or any of the platforms that you would listen to the DPB show at, whether that is Rumble, YouTube, X, or the 2 Facebook pages. Go out there, like, subscribe. But I wasn't reading the comments, but Chris did a bang-up job. I think that he is prepared now to do a second show, which could happen sooner than he likes.
Are you talking Thursday then?
It's possible, Chris. I am back in the saddle again to do grandpa duty, so you might be doing Thursdays until my son-in-law advances himself in his nursing career. He is doing clinicals currently on Thursdays. So, yes, I should be hopefully I will be done in a timely manner, but there's no given that that's going to happen. So, Chris, you might be back at it. And you're going to have a lot to talk about. I will probably join you this time remotely where I just I'm on audio or something. I don't know if I'll do a actual camera on myself, but I might do an audio phone in so I can be there. You can include me in the show, but we'll have a lot to report upon based on today's results and election results here in the primary season of 2026. And we will bring that to you on Thursday, because we will be back. But Chris, how'd you feel about doing the show on Thursday?
I knew it was going to be a lot of material to cover in a short amount of time, and talking to yourself always seems a little strange. not having anybody to answer. So that always, Rush always said people listen to him on the radio, and one of his skills was to make it sound so effortlessly. And he always said being able to talk the right amount of time and take the breaks. I didn't get any breaks, no commercial breaks for me.
Yeah, we don't do that. We don't do that in the DPB show.
Yeah,
We used to do that on the DPB show on the radio. You got, you were in and out every 15, not even 15 minutes.
Yeah, so I didn't have that issue of trying to fit a section of material in a certain amount of time. But yeah, it was fun. It was interesting.
Well, what's really cool about the podcast world, Chris, is the commercials happen if you're on certain platforms like Rumble. Ryan McKenzie can speak to this at greater length. You don't even control the commercials.
Right.
They just happen. You're on the air, and then you're off the air, and then you're back on the air. So it's hey, Chris, take this real quick. Take the rest of the show. I'm going to go mute for a second here. I got to answer this.
Okay. Well, David had asked me about why I thought people were making the claim of unelectable. And I think the real reason for that is one is it's a political argument that people can make. And I think it's made mostly by supporters and people on social media as opposed to the campaigns themselves, because these people get emotionally attached to their candidate and would like to see them win. And so they, of course, give their most forceful argument that they can come up with. They don't realize the damage maybe that they're doing to the other candidates if they were to become the actual nominee of the party. So I think that's really the issue, I would say.
Well, thank you. Thanks for answering that question. Perfect timing. That was my daughter, Cassidy, who doesn't always remember that I do Tuesdays and Thursdays. And I wanted to answer it just in case there was an emergency. And then, Chris, you would have been doing the show as I exit stage left or right.
Yeah, it would have been an ad lib. In my professional days, when I had meetings with clients, I always ignored the first call from my wife. But the second call, I definitely left the meeting and took it.
Yeah. Well, I'm in a position where when my wife or my daughters call, or even some family members, and it's good to see that part of my family's on. My mom's from Florida. I love doing a great job, Ma, in Florida. There she is. And then don't complain about your taxes if you are unwilling to go vote. Brother Mark, good, thank you. And so I've got two of my family members, so I don't have to worry about where they're at. They're watching the DPB show. But when I saw my daughter, and I thought she knew that I was on today, we talked about this morning, but she has a lot going on in her life with my little granddaughter. So it's good to know that she's okay. I'll call her back after the show. Thank you, Chris, for picking it up. Yes, I think that we are not building a movement for the future. I think Darren Bailey is. I think the Bailey movement is going to show itself here in about 2 hours and under 45 minutes, 41 minutes, right? 41 minutes. Polls are closing 2 hours and 41 minutes. If you know somebody, call, pick up your phone, text 5 people, and ask them if they've gone and voted today. This is how we initiate getting unreliable voters to the polling place. Volunteer to take somebody. Do that. But we're going to find out here in about 2 hours and 40 minutes that Darren Bailey is indeed the nominee for the Republican Party for governor here in the state of Illinois. And in order to move the needle, to really create this coalition, this movement to take back our state, to fire Pritzker, to make Illinois our home again, to make Illinois the land of Lincoln rather than the land of make-believe, is we've got to come together. I know I'm invited. I'm going to head up there tomorrow for lunch. I think it's at, gosh, I just read it, the invite. It's an Italian place in Naperville. I'm having brunch breakfast, and it's a unity breakfast. And I'm looking forward to it to some degree because I want to hear what these people have to say. These are the party leaders of the Illinois GOP. And unfortunately, we're missing a lot of the steps. We're missing out on the ability to move like the Democrat Party does, Chris. And you know this, right? You've seen it
Mhm.
over and over again. They just once the primary's over tonight, the Democrat machine is going to be in full motion headed towards November. And unfortunately, if the Republicans can't get themselves their act together, they're going to be left behind.
Yeah, I feel like the party of the Democrats has done a very good job of uh, getting their base riled up. They think that they think the women side of the party think they're losing their birth control rights. The LGBTQ part think that they're going to lose their rights
Right.
for marriage, and they've really convinced their base on all these things, and and as I was
Well,
trying,
Medicare, they're threatening. They're saying that they're going to lose out on their health care, on
their voting rights,
their
their
voting rights, their jobs. They're saying that their pensions. That's the other thing that suddenly, a Darren Bailey or a Ted Dombrowski or a Sheriff Bendrick or a Rick Heigner would suddenly come in and eliminate their pension. It's not going to happen.
yeah.
Constitutionally, it can happen. Chris knows more about that because he worked with some of that in his former life. But so they use fear, right? They're a fear-based party. They have to put the fear in people,
Well, and
and
they
it
also do
motivates.
some astroturfing as well to try and make the the individual topics a lot more popular than they seem. So when you see some of these ICE riots that and protests, there are people that are being professionally paid to show up to those types of events, and that just ups the number and makes it seem like it's more real. The same thing is going on with some of the Palestinian protests that we saw last year when the war between Israel and Hamas was going gangbusters. So they've done a pretty good job of that. And in fact, when they created those protests, that actually propelled Mondami into the mayorship in New York City because he was part of that whole protesting Israel and Free Palestine movement. So that made a big difference, and
Well,
they've taken advantage of that.
and exactly. Thanks for pointing that out, Chris, because they have mastered the mundane of life. They take advantage of highlighting the areas that people are super sensitive about. You know, paying their bills. Now, granted, we have made great strides in recapturing the working class. The Republican Party has actually become the party of the working class, and they're losing ground there. They're losing ground in the Hispanic communities. They're losing ground in the Black community. They're losing ground in the youth of this country because what do those people want more than anything? They want to buy a house. They want to live life. They want to get married, and they see a lot of that just disappearing. So there is a battle. Obviously, we have to overcome what Chris refers to as astroturfing, which means fake. Fake turf is astroturf. It's not real, it's synthetic. But they do a whole lot of sowing deceit and deception because they basically that's their party. That's their party platform. They have to constantly be running with it because they really don't have a way to fix anything. They don't have solutions. All they can do is try to destroy something after they've created the problem, they try to fix it. And that's what they've run with for many years. Unfortunately, that has been exposed and the light's been shown on it. And it continues to, well, that's why we have a Congress controlled by the Republicans. We have a presidency controlled by the Republicans, and blue states, obviously, that do exist, like Illinois, are controlled by the Democrats. So, and there's others: Minnesota, California, New York, Michigan is more of a 50-50 state, but Washington, Oregon. There's definitely, they've got their spots. You can look at any electoral map and you'll see it tends to lean towards the Northeast coast, the West Coast, and of course around the Chicagoland area. You see where their strongholds are, and they know though that their days are numbered because they don't have the ability to fix things, just to destroy things.
Well, one of the topics I'm thinking about for future shows is the decline of the leftist. And there's multiple reasons to believe that at some point there'll be a significant decline, because when you look at things like their birth rate, their birth rate is significantly lower than people who are more conservative. And when you look at second generation immigrants, they also lose out there because they start to move towards the Republican Party as well. So in order to keep up with those declining numbers, because they're not having the same number of children, because they believe in abortion and they believe in having,
they don't believe in procreation. You're right.
Exactly,
they don't believe in having children.
So that means just by default, and a lot of times people vote the way that their parents did, or at least they're influenced in some way. So you start to lose numbers that way. And then, as I mentioned, you have to have an ever increasing number of immigrants that are fresh off the boat to be able to replace the second generation immigrants that you convinced earlier. But now that they've seen how the system works, they realize that it's in their best interest to vote more conservatively. They lose those votes, so they have to constantly be replacing them. And the more that they bring in, the more that they have to replace as they start to switch to other parties along the way. So, yeah, I like the graveyard comment too. We do see some of that.
Well, the dead voters. Well, speaking of that, this is obviously breaking news before we came on the air. I want to make sure we get this out there. Chris and I were talking about this before coming on air, that sure enough, Matt Van Swall, and so Eric Doherty too, shout out to those guys, are posting out on X, excuse me, I have the hiccups a little bit. The North Carolina Senator Tom Tillis completely missed the vote on the motion to move forward the SAVE Act. He didn't show up. Imagine that. Absolutely unbelievable.
Well, I have an extra point to go along with that. So we talk a lot about the whole term limit issue. I'm concerned that with the term limit issue, you'll get more Tom Tillises who don't have to run for reelection, and so act like idiots that he is, because he's not going to have to vote or be voted in again.
Well, this is what happened just a little bit ago. Let's roll with it. So they have called a vote to advance the Save America Act. So basically, as Chris and I were saying, they voted to try to vote again, and that's, at least it's a positive
the
movement.
yeas are 51, the nays are 48. The motion is agreed to. The chair lays before the Senate the following message from the House.
Resolved that the bill from the Senate S 1383, entitled an act to establish the Veterans Advisory Committee and so forth and for other purposes, do pass.
On this vote.
So they've basically, and you don't want to get too caught up in the whole craziness of our bureaucracy, but they have voted to advance the Save America Act, which means now it's a matter of holding the floor, is what they say, which is that necessarily the talking filibuster? No, but the vote went 51 to 48. So it didn't even require J.D. Vance to show up to break a tie. So we know that as we just pointed out, Tom Tillis didn't show, and to vote. And Lisa Murkowski, she didn't vote for it. So there had to be somebody who voted from the Democrat side. So it'll be interesting to find out who that was, whether it's Fetterman or some the other moderate Democrats. But for now, it's movement in the right direction, Chris. That's the American people want it. I mean, it's resounding. This percentages of people, of voters who want voter ID. They want proof of citizenship in order to participate in this sacred duty we have to elect our officials, our governing official. I can't even say that. Governing officials.
Yeah, what's kind of interesting too is if you look at some of the polling, people want these individual pieces that are in the bill, but then when you ask them about the SAVE Act, they get confused as to what the SAVE Act is, and so they're not as for the SAVE Act as they are for the individual pieces that go into it, which is a little unnerving that people are not paying attention.
Well, this is going to continue to go on. I want to make sure that we get this video played here. Let me make sure I stop it and get it back on. But this is Ted Cruz just basically taking the Democrats about 57 minutes ago. This was put up by Eric Doherty. He just takes the Dems, and Eric Doherty says, just put a mic drop on them. He said every Democrat in the Senate who calls Save America Act voter ID Jim Crow 2.0, I will admit our Democrat colleagues should be experts in Jim Crow because it was the Democrat politicians who passed the Jim Crow laws. It was the Democrat politicians who founded the Ku Klux Klan. It was the Democrat politicians for decade after decade who enforced discrimination, separate but equal, poll taxes, and a host of other laws designed to prevent African Americans from voting. But do you know who has rejected their disingenuous claim that photo ID to vote is Jim Crow? The Supreme Court of the United States. This is why we need a talking filibuster for Save America. Dems have no argument. I thought I had it queued up, but here it is. Here's Ted.
The American people do not support voter ID. Mr. President, our Democrat colleagues are fond of bellowing into the TV cameras that photo ID to vote is Jim Crow. They tell us not earnestness. I will admit, our Democrat colleagues should be experts in Jim Crow, because it was Democrat politicians who passed the Jim Crow law. It was Democrat politicians who founded the Ku Klux Klan. It was Democrat politicians for decade after decade who enforced discrimination, separate but equal, poll taxes, and a host of other laws designed to prevent African Americans from voting. But do you know who has rejected their disingenuous claim that photo ID to vote is Jim Crow?
Who? Oh,
Supreme Court of the United States.
The Supreme Court of the United States.
Court of the United States, the state of Indiana, passed photo ID law requiring that you show a photo ID to vote. And a group of left-wing plaintiffs filed litigation challenging that.
As they should, Ted, as they should. And obviously, we will see. Will we get to the point where they keep it in? I believe that they shouldn't even leave the Senate chambers until they have that bill passed and moving towards the president's desk for signature today. The fact that we've played this game now for how long has this been going on? That this has been in their this House sent it on to them. Was it early February? I'd have to look.
Well, I mean, They've been working on this almost a year now. Well, they've been talking about it since they got elected, really.
Yes. Yeah. But I mean, I think the House, it passed out of the House, right? It was
passed
about
out the House.
February. Yeah, it moved to the Senate about February 1st, and that's when the pressure started right away. CNN did that piece on it where they covered the different breakdown and voter base that approve of, even Democrats, 70 overwhelming majority of Democrats support voter ID. Of course, Republicans do, and
There's already a requirement for ID in 36 states. So just doing the math of how many states are Democrat, there have to be some Democrat states that require IDs as well. So
yeah,
it's already a precedent in the majority of the states. So
it's about a 50-50 split on
well,
the
and
state.
the other thing is the reason that they switched to Jim Crow messaging, because they were getting hammered by saying that it impacts people of color more than the rest of us. So that in itself is racist. It's embarrassing for them to claim that people of color aren't able to go out and get IDs when we all know that they're capable of doing it. And when you look at the math of it, the difference between the number of people that are people of color without IDs and white people who don't have IDs, it's only a couple percent difference that, white people in general have a couple percent more of them have IDs than people of color. And some of that's also probably explained away once you start to talk about people who are immigrants and things like that. So, it's really not an issue.
Well, we do appreciate you guys joining us here today on Election Day 2026 for the Republican and Democrat primaries are taking place as we speak. You have about a little under 2.5 hours to get to the polling place if you have not voted yet. If you can hear my voice, you have not voted yet, get to your polling place and vote, vote, vote. It is what makes the dream, the American dream, work. Without voting, without electing our officials, as broken as we can talk about it being, from the fact that we need term limits, we need a whole host of things. This still, by far, hands down, unequivocally, is the greatest
Well, it is the
nation.
term limit. It is term limits for now, because
Yes.
you put them out if you don't like them.
Yeah, you vote them out. But it is the greatest nation. There's no question. You live in the land of the free, the home of the brave. If you believe in freedom, if you believe in the American dream, then go out and stand up for it and cast your vote. Whether you agree with DPB or not, that's fine. I believe in your right to go out and vote for who you would like to vote for. So go out and do it. Chris, obviously, on election day, a lot to catch up with. It is kind of a little quiet out there in Illinois, at least, because not every state is going through a primary vote right now. This happens to be Illinois. I don't know what other states host their primary on St. Patrick's Day. I doubt very many. It's not the best day to be hosting or holding, I should say, not hosting, holding a primary vote, because you got people that are out there drinking green beer and eating corned beef and cabbage.
Yeah.
And Chris wearing his green sweatshirt. Chris, are you having corned beef and cabbage here with Sue later?
No, she's working the election today. So
Oh, that's right. I'm sorry.
Later. So
yeah, I knew that before that came out of my
day.
mouth. You guys are going to get a take a home sack.
Yeah, I think we're eating leftovers, even
You know?
lower down the line of the take a home sack.
All right. So one of the things you brought up, Chris, and I think we also have to talk about this with the kind of some of the things that are in front of us. There's a reason there is a shifting on the news cycle, in the propaganda news, the legacy news, what Rush referred to as the drive-by media. They thought they were going to get traction with the Iran deal. And here's what I believe is happening, and no truer words are spoken than right here. Tulsi Gabbard, director of national intelligence, came out and said it best. I don't know if you saw this or not, Chris. Donald Trump was overwhelmingly elected by the American people to be our president and commander in chief. As a commander in chief, he is responsible for determining what is and is not an imminent threat, and whether or not to take action he deems necessary to protect the safety and security of our troops, the American people, and our country. The Office of the Director of National Intelligence is responsible for helping coordinate and integrate all intelligence to provide the President and Commander-in-Chief with the best information available to inform his decisions. After carefully reviewing all information before him, President Trump concluded that the terrorist and Islamist regime in Iran posed an imminent threat, and he took action based on that conclusion. Talk about a mic drop, Tulsi.
Yeah, and there's a reason for that post coming out today is that Joe Kent, let me take a look at what his specific title was. He was the counter-terrorist official under Tulsi Gabbard, and he quit today.
Joe Kent?
Joe Kent, yeah.
Okay.
And so he quit today and wrote in his resignation letter. He said that he could not, in good faith, remain with the administration given what's going on in Iraq. He's also part of this group. So as people may know, there's two groups. There's a group of people that want to be isolationist, and the people in that group are people like Tucker Carlson, Tim Pool is in that group.
Candace Owens.
There's
the Haji twins.
Yeah, and Bannon's kind of somewhere in the middle. He's leaning towards that group, and Joe Kent used to be on that show quite a bit. So that's kind of what's going on there. And then a lot of the argument there and the battle between those two groups is one group is claiming that it's not in the U.S. best interest to be there, and that we're only there because Israel is making us. And so then it makes that whole argument even uglier, because there's people that are of Jewish faith who are supporting the war. And so now it's just getting kind of an ugly debate.
Well, it's getting wacky, because no different than the unelectable, right? Once again,
right? Yeah,
you have people within your own party, and I think Tulsi's forcefulness of what she posted. And let's all remember, Tulsi Gabbard back in 2020 was a candidate for the nomination, or the candidate for the Democrat Party for presidency, a candidate for presidency under the Democrat Party. She is now the director of national intelligence under President Donald J. Trump, and part of his cabinet. But Chris, here's your boy Joe Kent.
I don't know, he's my boy, but
here's your boy. You remember when George Jefferson was talking to Archie Bunker, and he goes, your boy, and he goes, boy, he goes, boy, not boy. I don't mean he's your boy. I mean he's your boy. After much reflection, I have decided to resign from my position as director of the National Counterterrorism Center, effective today. I cannot in good conscience support the ongoing war in Iran. Iran posed no imminent threat to our nation. I better pop Tulsi's comment back up there. Joe, you don't determine that. Good job, Tulsi. But no imminent threat to our nation. It is clear that we started this war due to pressure from Israel and its powerful American lobby. Oh, so he's jumped on me.
Yeah, he's already jumped on that already.
Is he getting? Is he going to be? He's going to get a contract with somebody, President Trump, after much reflection. So, okay, Joe. All right. Say it ain't so, Joe, because right there, it is my pleasure to nominate Joe Kemp as the national. So, as a soldier, thank you for your service. Green Beret, thank you. A CIA officer. Joe has hunted down terrorists and criminals his entire adult life. Joe.
Well, the other issue with Joe, it's more of a personal issue with Joe, is Joe's wife did get killed while serving in Syria. Which, why are we in Syria? Who knows? There are just troops there, and that was during the
Obama administration.
Yeah. Well, but we've had them there, and it wasn't even under Trump. There were some so Syria turned over its leadership. They threw out the previous leader who had been
Assad.
Yeah, Assad, and he was the son of the previous dictator, and he'd been there forever, and he was being held up. His administration is being held up by Russia because Russia wanted to have naval bases there. And so it was kind of an interesting situation. But we had troops there for who knows what reason. And, she was in there and they were attacked by somebody and she got killed. So I guess I can see from a personal perspective, given how much he's served.
Yeah.
Because of these wars. But unfortunately, what's happened, and I brought this up in the show last Thursday, is all these things have just been dumped on Trump's desk and left to fester for, well, not even so much Trump's desk, it's the presidential desk, just dumped on there, and no one's addressed these things. We've had Iran for 47 years when they held our embassy and the people in it hostage, and they've constantly been a mess. And the problem is if you allow them to have nuclear weapons and wait for them to do some kind of terrorist activity that threatens the United States, by the time that they threaten the United States, the results could be so devastating that we never recover from them. Yeah. You want to wait for them to so let's go back and talk.
But by the numbers, how about this, Chris?
They're building a nuclear capability, no question about it. This isn't the Iraq War where we made up stories that they're building it. They have it. We know they have it. We've had people in and who've seen that they're doing it. The atomic agency has been in there looking at it. So we know it's there. We know that they're building ballistic missiles, and it's only a matter of time before they're capable of hitting the United States. So what are we going to do? Wait for them to come up with a missile that hits the United States?
Trigger one, to launch one, to actually have it impact.
Well, and look at how long they've been using the Strait of Hormuz for the last 47 years as a thing to hang over the head of the world.
China, Russia, everyone.
Exactly. And so we can't just allow them to continue to do that. And if they're willing to do that, on the Strait of Hormuz, what makes you think they're not going to hold us hostage with the nuclear weapons? So, and then on top of that, they had built up their ability to manufacture all these drones and all these other missiles, and then they were shipping them around to the various terrorist groups that they're supporting with those pallets of cash.
They export terrorism.
And they're giving them. Right, exactly. So where do you think those missiles that Hamas and Hezbollah and all the other ones,
and the Houthis,
all those people, they're where do they get those things? They're getting them from. So
they're the manufacturers of terrorism. They're the manufacturers of terrorists.
Right. And Europe is being short-sighted as usual because they want to be the opposite of Trump as always. Just like when we told them, hey, you got to do something about this, your dependency on Russian oil and natural gas. And they laughed at us. Okay, well, then the Ukraine war comes up and they're crying and they're still getting their natural gas from Russia.
Yeah.
Then they turn around and they complain that the United States is loosening some of the sanctions on Russia for the oil. I mean, talk about hypocritical. They're getting natural gas from them. They're also getting oil. So that's ridiculous. And then what they also fail to realize is, oh, well, this doesn't impact us. Well, it certainly does, because when you look at the missile capabilities of Iran, they're certainly going to be able to hit Europe a lot sooner than they're going to be able to hit the United States, because it's much closer. So they're just ignoring it all because they want to ignore it. They don't want to. The other problem that they're having is that they've allowed so much immigration from Muslim countries that they don't want to antagonize the locals that are there. When you look at
the invaders, not the locals, the invaders.
Yeah, the invaders, exactly. Well, I'm using that sarcastically, but yes,
they're invaders. Hey,
but when you look at England, the number one baby name is Muhammad.
Yeah.
Well, what's happening there.
Demographic destiny. They're trying to. I mean, I was going to mention this, interject in real quick. There's no ifs and buts about it. The nation of Islam, or the religion of Islam, which is practiced by most of the Muslim people out there. Not all Muslims are radical Islamists. I'm not saying that, but for the most part, they still subscribe to Islam. Islam believes unequivocally that they control the world, and that's what they're trying to do. The thing about Tulsi that she mentioned in the first sentence of her statement to Joe Kent is that the majority of people in this country elected Donald J. Trump. That statistically has proven itself that most of the people approve of the actions Trump has taken in Iran. A majority approval. It's not a great majority, but it's a majority. However, amongst the people who support Trump, it is a very high majority. People who voted for him are still with him. So the fact that there are people that are jumping ship, these are the same people that probably weren't along with Trump in 2016, 2020, and in 2024. They probably have historically been outspoken, or maybe not outspoken, but behind the scenes, in disagreement with Trump on things. Well, okay, that's great. If you're in a position, and granted, I'll give the guy valor, right? I mean, he knows valor. He served our country. He at least stepped aside and said, I don't agree with him. And the beautiful thing about the First Amendment in our country is you have the right to do that. Hey, speaking of the First Amendment, and it being St. Patrick's Day, and we're up towards the end of the show, and it is voting election day here in Illinois. If you have not voted, once we stop the show, you have 2 hours to get to your polling place. Get out there and vote. But this is something I think that we need to talk about on St. Patrick's Day. Our good friend Sean Farsh has a message for us on St. Patrick's Day.
This is your favorite president, and I just wanted to wish you a very happy and highly respected St. Patrick's Day. I'm proud to announce that no president has ever had a bigger shillelagh than I do. It's the biggest and most powerful shillelagh in the history of the world. Big shamrocks, too. Nobody's ever seen anything like it. Everybody's talking about it. Nobody's ever seen anything like it, but I got along very well with St. Patrick, and I called him Pat. I said, Pat, all of the gold at the end of your rainbow, you have to give it to your favorite president, or else you're going to have a lot of problems. He said to me, we don't want problems, sir, not with you. So we made a beautiful deal. I also got along well with, you may have heard of him, Lucky the leprechaun. And he said to me, sir, he said to me, laddie, they're after me Lucky Charms, laddie. What are we going to do about it? I said, we're not going to let them take your Lucky Charms. We're not going to do it. We're going to solve your problem. But it was the North American land whale known as Rosie O'Donnell. She was eating all of the Lucky Charms. She was eating everything in sight. I was talking to Ireland. They said, you have to take her back, sir. She's causing another potato famine, sir. There's no end in sight. She won't stop eating, sir. Please take her back. I said, we're not going to do that. We can't do that. She's your problem now. And so much for the luck of the Irish. Is very unlucky you have to deal with her, but she's your problem now. If you send her back, I said, if you send her back, we're going to tariff you 5,000% per pound. You don't want that to happen. So they're keeping her. We deported her. They're keeping her. But I hope you have a tremendous St. Patrick's Day. As they say, may your troubles be less. May your blessings be more. That nothing but happiness come through your door. Happy St. Patrick's Day. God bless you, and thank you for your attention to this matter.
Thank you, Sean Farsh. It's always good. That's a good way to end the show. You need a little comedy relief in the midst of everything that's going on. You know, he does a great job. I appreciate him so much.
He's funny.
Yeah, he is funny. He is funny. All right, Chris. Stay tuned. We will be back on Thursday. I don't know in what form. It might just be Chris on the screen. It might be me on the audio, but we will be back. We're going to cover the election results. We're going to cover what else is going on. Obviously, there's major shifting going on in the Democrat Party, especially in light of the Save America Act. I'm hoping by that point we will have moved that along, signed, or I should say voted on by the Senate and passed, and then sent for the president's signature, which will help as we progress towards the November / in Illinois. You've got 40 days, so it's also October and part of September. 40 days of election season. Hopefully, we get rid of that. That's the next thing to go.
Is that because it's biblical? 40 days and 40 nights.
No, 40 days and 40 nights where you get a vote for 40 days and 40 nights. And so thank you. Good segue, Chris. If you have not voted, get out and vote. My goodness, you had 40 days in Illinois. If you're holding a vote by mail ballot, go out to your post office right now before they close. You might be a little late, and get that postmarked today. If it's not postmarked today, your vote might not count. So please, whatever you do. So if you're not able to get there, at least get to your polling place, because they're open till 7. They won't close the doors. They will allow you to come in. If you're in line, there's probably not a line. It is a primary. We can't even hardly get 25% of people to show up to vote for primaries. So get out there, vote. And we'll be back Thursday to talk about what transpired. And Chris is going to have to maybe do the whole show again. So we look forward to that. All right, let's go ahead and pray it out. Lord, we thank you for this day. We thank you for St. Patrick's Day. We thank you for faith in freedom in a country where we get to live under the shelter, under the umbrella of what has gone before us. And we thank you that we have the ability to live in a free land and to vote for our elected officials. Lord, continue to watch over us. Continue to guide us and lead us in all that we do and say. And Lord, please bless this great nation. Raise up people to go forward, to continue to spread peace. And there's only one thing that peace comes from, and that's from a relationship with Jesus Christ. We thank you for everything that you do, and we will continue to give you the glory in all things. In Jesus we pray. Amen. All right, Chris. There we are. Another show. Let's make it a wrap. I love you. Chris loves you, but Jesus loves you more. Until Thursday,